Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen, and today we're going to talk about when using the law of attraction is pushing you out of alignment, whether it be with your purpose in this dunya, or it be with your deen or your lifestyle, or, just generally pushing you out of alignment energetically, materialistically, financially, all of these things. Okay, but before we do that and we jump into that conversation, I want to share a little story that one of you listeners shared with me over on Instagram upon listening to one of my episodes where I talked about signs from Allah. And I have gotten permission to share the story, although I forgot to ask if I could share your name, so I'm not going to share your name in case you're listening, but you know who you are, and thank you for reaching out to me and sharing this story because it really was so adorable. So this listener was out for a daily walk doing a bit of dhikr, and she was listening to the episode where I talk about signs from Allah, and specifically at the point in the podcast where I was talking about how Allah will send you signs if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, like that. Allah is actually constantly in communication with us, but we have to be willing to see the signs. And in that moment, she was passed by a man on a bike, and on the back of his shirt it said "nothing to worry about" to her. And many of us might just, completely ignore it or forego it or not see it or not think too much about it. But I think it's such a beautiful reminder that the signs can come in literally anything. And, whether it be somebody having a specific saying on a shirt or a little quotable or an image of something, or you see a book with a book title that is resonating with you, all of these things can be small but very meaningful signs from Allah. And I just absolutely loved this story because it really resonated with me in that Allah really speaks to us wherever we are, and we don't have to go looking for Allah. Allah will come find us where we are, and that can even be by making sure that this person with this saying on the back of their shirt is driving past you when you're out on your walk doing your dhikr. So subhanallah, I really, really loved that. And so thank you to you who shared this story. I really appreciate hearing from you, and it really put a smile on my face when I heard your little story. And I also want to encourage the rest of you out there who is listening, if you have any cute little stories after hearing the podcast, any aha moments, anything that resonated with you that you might want to share with the other listeners of the podcast, then feel free to message me or reach out to me over on Instagram at Manifesting Muslimah and share these things with me. And obviously let me know as well that I am allowed to share it on the podcast, and whether or not next time also if I can share your name. It's not important necessarily that I can share your name, but it's nice to have a name sometimes. But this was my mistake because I didn't ask if I could share your name. So, but you know who you are. Thank you so much for reaching out. It really means the world to me. And with all of that said, I think we should get into the episode today. Okay, my darling. So let's talk about today's topic, which is when the law of attraction pushes you out of alignment. And this is quite an important topic to have when we're discussing the law of attraction, because the law of attraction, in the mainstream understanding of what it means to manifest things into your life, is often very dunya focused. It is often very materialistically focused. When we're seeing law of attraction coaches, the big ones at least, not even just the big ones, but also the smaller coaches and gurus, like now with social media being so big, there are always new coaches popping up, just like myself. So I'm, very much a part of this group of people that I'm talking about. But we're often seeing a lot of them show up in very materialistic ways, and their goals and the way that they show their quote unquote manifestation powers is by showing us the amount of materialistic things that they have gained, which quite often leads to a general understanding around the law of attraction being a physical, for physical manifestations, a dunya, a tool for this dunya, not for the akhirah, not for the hereafter. And that is very important to be very careful of this understanding and general perception of how the law of attraction is being presented, because it can very well steer you down the wrong path of what the law of attraction actually is. And when you're steered down the wrong path, this is where you can then fall out of alignment with yourself, with your deen, with Allah, with what you truly want and need in this dunya, and with the surrendering and the letting go of the expectations, and allowing Allah's will and plan and timing to come into its full effect. So let's talk a little bit about this, because I very much feel like, this is something that I've been struggling a lot around, as a law, as a law of attraction coach on social media. Because if you've been following me for some time, you'll see that my life, while I travel, it's not very glamorous. I live out on farms. I do heavy physical work. I'm not wearing Prada bags and Gucci shoes, and I don't drive a Lamborghini. I'm driving my dad's 15-year-old car that he gave to me before I started my travels. I live in a tiny house. I often show up without any makeup on in my videos. I basically look very different, and I'm very aware of this, than a lot of other manifestation coaches who are usually very perfectly groomed and are wearing some name brands, and they might be in a penthouse or they might be in a really expensive car or something like that. And I'm very aware of this. And for a while, I was really feeling insecure about this, because I thought, how could I be a law of attraction coach and not look the part? Almost like, what am I doing wrong? I must be doing something wrong. And in reality, I wasn't, because I was in alignment with the things that I was attracting into my life, and with my deen, and in alignment with how the law of attraction should be used. Not to say that you cannot use the law of attraction for materialistic things, but it's to understand, again, the alignment aspect. So we will get back to that. So put a pin in that one. We're going to come back to this little topic in a minute. But either way, the point of that story is to basically explain that even for myself, as somebody who would like to think I got a pretty good understanding around the law of attraction. I mean, I have my whole business around it, but I'm still learning, and I still need reminders just as much as the next person, and just as much as you who listens in on this podcast. Again, thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. I very much also can fall out of alignment at any moment. I very much also at any moment can question and doubt myself, and question and doubt, Allah's abilities sometimes, even though I don't want to, but I am human. And so these things happen. And so what has happened for me this is not right now, this was a little while ago, was that I felt like I had to show up in a specific way, because the law of attraction, all of a sudden in my mind, there was that little whisper of hesitation or doubt or fear, whatever came in my mind, and said, you don't look the part. You don't look the part. This is not what law of attraction looks like. Who's going to want to listen to law of attraction advice from someone who's not driving around in a Lamborghini and has red bottom soles on all of her shoes and whatever? And I really had to come back to this understanding of the law of attraction. And this is where, again, I really encourage you to fully understand the law of attraction, not from a perspective of dunya, but dunya and the akhirah, but ultimately the akhirah. Okay, this is what is important. The law of attraction is not for the dunya. It is actually for the akhirah. And when we shift the perspective ever so slightly, it can actually make a huge difference in how you utilize the law of attraction in this dunya, so that you can focus on all the right things. And sometimes, now you remember that little pin that we put in before, we're going to unpin that now. Sometimes that can look like riches, driving flashy cars, having big homes, flying first class, looking very glamorous all the time, wearing makeup, all the name brands, clothes, shoes, bags, whatever. That can look like that, but it can also look like, for instance, staying on a farm, looking after chickens, doing hard physical labor every day, and that also bringing you joy and closer to Allah. The ultimate thing that it comes back and down to is if it is in alignment truly with who you are and the version of you that best serves Allah and that constantly brings you back to Allah. That is what it comes down to. The law of attraction is not a tool for this dunya. The law of attraction is a tool to remind us constantly about Allah, to bring us back to Allah, and to make sure we are living life intentionally. Why couldn't I say that? Intentionally. No, I said that right. So making sure we're living life intentionally with the correct niyyah, making sure that our niyyah is that we're taking stock, taking our own pulse from time to time, making sure that we're taking the correct actions, that we are in alignment not only with what we want because of current trends and whatever, and we're influenced as humans because that's what we are, but also that it ultimately aligns with the greater goals of our lives, the inspiration and the divine purpose that Allah has created for each one of us. That is the one that'll bring us closer to Him. So when we're talking about life purposes, so I kind of split it into two. There's our purpose, which is to be Allah's servants in this dunya. That is it. That is, if you're ever thinking, I don't know what my purpose in life is, that is your purpose. So just focus on that and then the rest will come, inshallah, right? But the second purpose is the dunya purpose. And this is where we also want to think that we can have some influence in this dunya, or there's a reason for us being in this dunya, and there's a reason for our hopes and dreams. And that is the secondary purpose. It is still important because it gives your life meaning while you're here in this dunya, and your life purpose can help other people in many, many ways, whether you are an artist and you're influencing people through your writings or your singing or your art or whatever, or you're a mother and you're creating life and bringing up the next generation of Muslims. I like to call them mini Muslims, until they grow up and then they're Muslims themselves. I love it, mini Muslims. Anyway, got a little distracted there. So it can be for any reason. Like, it doesn't have to be, my life's purpose has to be to create this massive brand and it's going to become an empire, and I have to be wealthy and I have to create like this physical wealth in this dunya. It doesn't have to be that. It can be something as simple as I wrote the book that Allah inspired me and made me inspired me to dream about, and then made it possible for me to then achieve by me also making a very conscious decision to want to achieve and go down that road, right? So once we understand the two different purposes, which is, the ultimate purpose in this dunya, which is to serve Allah as His servants in this life and in the hereafter, inshallah, and then the dunya purpose, then we need to make sure that regardless of which one we're sort of like focused on, which, pretty much is both of them at the same time, all the time, is making sure that we are aligned with this constantly, that we're always coming back to this purpose of ours, that we're constantly coming back to this point when we are aligned with our purpose, both the one that is for the ultimate purpose to serve Allah, but also the one for this dunya, where we may have an influence on some people, on ourselves, creating something that'll have an effect years and years and years from now, whatever it might be. Okay, so once we start understanding that the law of attraction is about so much more than just driving nice cars and looking glamorous or having big homes or flying first class, and basically is more than, oh, baby, a little thirsty. Sorry if you can you hear that? I think it sounds so cute. That's Doodle drinking his water. He drinks like an old man too. Like, he sleeps like an old man. He walks like he's 14. So what can I say? He's a little old man. And sometimes when he drinks, it's kind of loud. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yes, so once we understand that the law of attraction is more than just the dunya pleasures. It is also about the akhirah pleasures. It is also about aligning ourselves to make sure that we're living a life intentionally to serve Allah, but that we can do that in this dunya through what we are manifesting into our lives by making sure that we know what it is that we want, why we want it, and then the actions that we're taking, and constantly checking our own pulse on this and making sure we're, not being diverted by someone else, something else, culture, pressure, stress, anxiety, waswas, whatever else it might be. That is the point when the law of attraction really becomes magical. So bringing it back for a minute to what I was mentioning before with regards to myself, I noticed that I was coming out of alignment with the law of attraction, because the moment I started teaching about the law of attraction was also the moment that I really opened myself up to a pressure that I did not expect, or at least maybe wasn't so aware of was there until it actually happened. And this is a pressure that I very much put upon myself, because that's usually how it goes. But because I was putting myself out there and on social media as a law of attraction coach, I've been seeing a lot of other content from other attraction coaches, and all of a sudden I started noticing the stark differences between how I put myself out there as a law of attraction coach versus how other people put themselves out there as law of attraction coaches. And as a result, and this is where, as I said, I started coming out of alignment, was because I started to think that I had to do the same as them, that I needed to want the same as them, that my lifestyle should reflect theirs, because that is how you show success as a law of attraction coach, and that is how life should be led as a law of attraction coach. Meaning, suddenly I started looking at my goals, and I was looking at, I want a bigger house, I want to live somewhere in like a big city, metropolitan place, I want to wear makeup every day, and I should do my hair every day. Like, I started looking into goals that were no longer aligning with myself, my values, and the things that bring me back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this is for this chapter of my life, so I can't speak on what it'll look like in the future, but this is why I say constantly take stock, because these things change. They are constantly changing. We are energetic creatures, and the energy of the world is constantly changing, and so are we. So while I'm going through, and have been for the last few years, going through a period of my life where I'm seeking this more calm and peace and silence around me, and more of like this, I want to get in contact with nature and have this silence around me, I can't also then be trying to manifest this city urban life with high heels and makeup and glam and whatever, because it's not in alignment with what my soul truly wants and what my purpose currently is in this dunya, what the dunya purpose currently is for me, which is also the one that is linked to my ultimate purpose of serving Allah. Because what happens when I start to want to have this idea of like, oh, I need to be super glamorous, and I need to look at how I can make enough money to live in a big city again, is it takes away from the purpose of my business. It takes away from me being able to align myself truly with the reason for why I created Manifesting Muslimah, not so I could become a ridiculously wealthy woman who had red bottom soles. I keep coming back to that. I'll have very few references of what wealth will look like, but that is like one reference. Or whatever, like a penthouse in a big city or whatever. And that might be good for me in a different part of my life, but right now is not what's going to bring me peace. And right now, what I need in order to have a deen that is in alignment is silence and peace. When I am around too many people is the point that I get pushed out of alignment, because I'm still in a phase where I'm healing certain things about myself, and I'm slowly getting myself into the track of things, right? Anyway, it's just one example. You might find that you could be doing the same things with some of the things that you're currently trying to manifest, that when you're really thinking about it, which is why I also made the episode here on the podcast about the intention and the niyyah, and why that should be the drive of your manifesting and the law of attraction, is because when you really think about it and you come back to what is the intention of this, is it something that is going to bring me back to Allah? Is it something that's going to bring me back to my deen? Is it something that will strengthen my bond and connection with Allah? And if the answer is anything but no, then you might come to the realization that it's because it's not truly in alignment with what you want, and chasing it while you can still achieve it, because Allah facilitates. That is what He does for us. He facilitates the good things, but He also facilitates the wrong things, because we're the ones who've made the decision and we're asking Allah for it. And Allah facilitates because we have to learn from our own mistakes in this dunya, and that's what will be judged upon on the Day of Judgment. But He will also facilitate the wrong things. And so you might get it, but getting it might not bring you the joy. It might not bring you the peace. It might be pushing you further away from Allah. It might come with a lot of stress. You might have to sacrifice a lot of things that are actually bringing you a lot of happiness and peace and joy in this dunya. And so look at the cost of the manifestation, the realization of the goal. Look at the cost of that. We do a lot of this kind of work in my membership, Manifesting Muslimah membership, which if you haven't, you should definitely check that out. It is so much fun in there. And alhamdulillah, it's still like my favorite thing I've ever done with Manifesting Muslimah. It's £10 a month. Anyway, this is not like, I'm not about to sit here and promote it. You can go check it out. There's links and all that good stuff. But we've talked about this a lot, because one of the things that we often find when we're really struggling to attain a manifestation, the blessing that we think we want, is because sometimes we need to adjust it. We need to look at what it is that we're asking for and truly figure out whether or not we're in alignment with that thing, or if we're just wanting it, or a version of it that's not really in alignment with that thing. And adjusting it and judging it a little, and coming back to our intentions and our niyyah, and checking up constantly on these things, can make sure that we come back into alignment with the law of attraction as it is meant to be used for us. Not as a tool to live flashy lives in this dunya, but as a tool to live good lives while striving towards Allah. That is what it is here for, which is also why I often say to people, you know, when people are like, oh, the law of attraction is haram. And I'm like, how could it be haram? It's the thing that brings me closer to Allah. It is the thing that reminds me of Allah every day. It's the thing that reminds me to speak to Allah. It's the thing that reminds me to live an intentional life and not let life, you know, fly past me, and then on Yawm al-Qiyamah I'll stand in front of Allah and say, I don't know why I didn't do that. I don't know. I just did what everybody else was doing. That's not going to fly. Well, I don't know. I can't speak on behalf of Allah and what He will let fly and not fly, but my personal understanding is certainly that we have far more responsibility and accountability than just to say, well, I don't know. I don't know why I have to say it that way, but that's just how I imagine, like, because it's like, oh, well, I was really caught up on that one, wasn't I? That was stupid. Like, why did I just allow life to fly past me and then not live more intentionally a life that is pleasing to Allah, and that will make this dunya one where I am closer to my deen. And even money, financial wealth, Lamborghinis, big houses, that can bring you closer to Allah. If that is the thing that will bring you closer to Allah, then that is the thing that brings you closer to Allah. And that's fine. Let's not shame each other and each other's dreams for that. If that is your dream and you fully believe that having these things are going to bring you closer to Allah, then go for those dreams. If you know that those things are not the things that are going to bring you closer to Allah, then don't go for those dreams, even if society tells you to. You know, but this is the point of really taking stock and making sure you're in alignment, and that you're using the law of attraction not just for this dunya, but for the akhirah as well. Ultimately, that is what it comes down to. All right, my darling, I think I've said what needed to be said on this topic. I would love to hear your take on this as well, and whether or not there were some shifts for you in terms of your understanding of the law of attraction. As always, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Manifesting Muslimah, because I do, again, love the voice notes instead of texting. And I love to hear from you as well on just general topics that you'd like me to cover on this podcast. Anything, I'm open to hearing you out and connecting with you. I absolutely adore you, and I thank you again so much for constantly coming back to this podcast, even when I can be a little flaky. By the way, I do have to say this. The reason why I didn't upload on Monday that's just gone. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because I actually really wanted to, but I got my period. It was my first day of my period. And if I have to explain to you why I didn't feel like sitting down in 32-degree heat in front of my laptop and record a podcast episode on the first day of my period, then, it's not that we can't be friends, but I feel like we need to have a conversation, because I feel like maybe we couldn't relate to each other. I don't know. Anyway, my darling, please forgive me for that little snafu on Monday. Calling my period a snafu has got to be, that's a vibe. Anyway, thank you so much for listening in on today's episode. I hope that it was beneficial to you. Please don't forget to rate and review and share this podcast with anybody that you think might benefit from hearing it. And until next time, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.